Hello and welcome to another We Are Developers Live, the first one of December. I guess we're all now petering out a bit and getting into the spirit of the holidays. We're also going to be taking a break of the live show, but next week we have another one, so that's not to worry. And then the week after, I think we have one as well. I'm not quite sure yet. We haven't quite planned that all through it yet. How are you doing, Dan? How's the 1st of December in the UK?
Very cold. I might not look it because I'm sat here in a t-shirt, but I am next to a heater that's it's doing its best, but it's absolutely freezing. It was I mean, I would say it's cold, but we'll see in a moment. Our guest, I'm sure, is somewhere a little bit colder. But yeah, I'm definitely feeling the winter season. It's time for me to get away for some sun. I'm going to Brazil, so can't wait.
Fair enough. Well, it's good if you can, like the thing that I always find fascinating, as soon as it starts snowing, it's actually fine. The in between, when it's just like rainy and wet and grizzly and getting a bit colder, then it's actually more painful. But we're not going to fall into the trap of like two people who lived in England for too long just talking about the weather now for 3 hours, because we probably could. So today we got another guest coming with us as well, and it's Ondra Urban. And Ondra, you're in Czech Republic, right?
Yeah, I'm in Prague, Czech Republic. Thanks for having me, guys.
You're COO at Apify. We're going to talk about Apify in the later part of the show in more detail. But what does the COO actually do?
Anything, really. I think when we were talking about this moniker for myself, we actually read a lot of blog posts and articles about it, and we found out that it doesn't really mean anything. So I'm going to tell you what it means for us. And for us, it means that I do all the things that our CEO isn't doing. I'm kind of like focusing on, maybe start from the beginning. Our CEO and founder, Jan, he's an engineer, and he's an engineer at heart. He loves product, and he founded the company, he built it, and I joined about 2 years later. I joined as an engineer, and then I was growing with the company, right? When I joined, it was like 10 people in the company, and now there's 180. So of course, the responsibilities of the people were shifting. What we were doing everything was shifting. And as we were growing, we realized that Jan, he wants to focus more on the product, more on the engineering side, more improving the platform. And me, because I used to be an engineer, I'm not an engineer anymore, but I also used to be a lawyer. I always had a bit close relationship with the business side. I started helping with marketing. I started helping with DevRel because I was kind of the engineer who also understood the business a little bit. And through that, I started helping with growth, with sales, and over time, all of those functions sort of collected under my leadership. And this is what I do now.
Mm-hmm. I mean, in our case, our COO is Naida, and she's doing a lot of the cat herding of the company as well, like making sure that meetings happen, making sure that the right people are talking to the right people. And I found that a CEO wastes a lot of time doing that. So having somebody in a place like that makes actually sense, the chief operating officer. And after a certain size, I think it just has to come in. Like, because there is, I mean, more people means more work, means more misunderstandings, means more confusion. It's interesting that you were a lawyer and a developer, and seeing that what Apify does. It's going to be very interesting later to talk about the kind of like ideas that the confusion points that I had as well. And I'm turning my laptop because I think the camera is not quite in the middle, and it doesn't help because I'm not using the camera of the laptop. So probably not a good idea to do it that way. So let's do it that way. Fair enough. Cool. Yeah, magic, those computer things. So let's talk about some resources that we collected for this week before we go into the detail about the other bits. So the big thing, of course, we had like Cyber Week, and we had Black Friday, and we had Cyber Monday, and all these bits and bobs. And there is a lot of things going on in this case. And I was very impressed that over 2,000 fake shopping sites were actually discovered before Cyber Monday. And yeah, I'm not the CloudSec, the company does this, and I'm not surprised, but it seems like it's very cheap to do these kind of things these days. And it's really hard to actually recognize a certain brand, especially when I see on Instagram, you see like these things, like these cool gadgets that I always get offered, and they have like 50 brand names, and they're the same crap. Basically, you order them, and then it's a Chinese knockoff of something else. But it feels like that that getting people to recognize what is reality and what is not a proper shop is really hard to do. Do you feel like did you ever fall for a fake shop, Ondra or Dan?
Yeah, I don't think so, but I'm not of a. I do quite a lot of research before I buy anything. I do have this engineer in me, so everything I buy, I'm kind of like looking at all the reviews and comparing everything and looking at the data, and I really spend maybe way too much time before I buy anything. So I haven't, but I've seen them, and especially with AI, it's crazy how easy it is to sort of fake anything now. And because historically, you would at least have to put in some work, whereas now you can automate everything and you can sort of create phishing and fake sites just at scale. And coincidentally, I love that this is the first topic, because what we do and what we have actually done at Apify just and released it just yesterday, I think, is our Black Friday analysis of discounts. So you might know that there's an EU regulation that tells you how discounts can be actually displayed, right? That you cannot cheat with the discounts. You cannot say this product is discounted from, I don't know, 100 euro to 80 euro if it has never been sold for 100 euro and it has always been sold only for 80 and things like that. So we have been monitoring this as a web scraping company. We have been doing this for years now. It's like 9 years already, and every year we publish a report and we're trying to sort of cultivate the space. So it's not fake sites, but it's fake discounts, and it leads to the same thing, right? It's people buying things because they feel they're getting a good deal. In the end, it's not really a good deal. It's just like a scam.
Yeah. I mean, that's interesting. I mean, I worked for a price comparison site a long time ago, and it was like very disappointing to me because I realized the more people pay, the cheaper their stuff gets shown before that European law came through. So I guess there's a lot of like, I mean, I normally don't go for the big sales thingies. This time I bought a Hoover because mine was broken, but normally I save a lot of money on Cyber Monday by not spending it on anything. But there's always this like, oh my God, you saved so much money with stuff that you didn't need. That always cracks me up as well. That people think like, I made such a bargain. You're like, well, you didn't want it in the first place, so you didn't make a bargain, did you?
And also there's the fact that so much of that, Chris, is it's the impulse, isn't it? That it's I mean, things like TikTok now. I've got TikTok Shop, and as we know, the whole algorithm kind of encourages us to just to swipe and act without thinking. So it's very easy, I think, to fall down one of those rabbit holes where you're buying a product that's a bit like the old eBay listings, when people would say you're just buying a piece of paper with a picture of the car on it, you're not actually buying the car. It feels a bit like the Wild West, doesn't it, in some of these little pockets of the web or within some of these social media platforms. So I've not really been scammed through a website, but I actually got scammed, or nearly got scammed, on Etsy just by signing up. All I did was sign up to sell some digital things on there, and I ended up not doing it because I immediately got an automated bot response, and it was to do with my payment method, and it all looked legitimate. It was in the platform. It was like a DM that was automatically sent the moment I signed up. I entered my payment details, and then I just took a look at the URL during one of the steps, and there was a clever bit of domain spoofing, with a kind of a dot in the middle of the domain that made it look legitimate. And before I knew it, I had my bank phoning me saying, we're blocking this payment. And, and I'm somebody who, like you, Ondra, I'd like to think I'm doing my due diligence, but I obviously wasn't. So,
yeah. I mean, my favorite was that RN instead of M. When you had like rnmicrosoft.com, and it looks like when you're on a smudgy screen or your glasses are dirty, it looks like Microsoft.com. So that's a clever thing. There was also the Russian A that basically looks like the normal Latin A, but it's not quite. So PayPal.com had that Russian thing in it for a long time. That was a fake site that basically, when you looked at the URL, it URL encoded it, so you saw there was a special character in it. But when you just looked at the URL instead of the link, then you just could fall for it quite easily. Interestingly enough, that also
once I was saved by 1Password because somebody replicated the Google login screen so well that I log in with Google into all my services. I just press Google and just kind of go with the flow, and it was just like a perfect copy. And I almost like started typing my password in because I was like, what's going on? Why am I logged out? And then but wait, why isn't 1Password filling this in for me? And I realized that the URL was wrong and it was actually a scam.
Yeah, I have the same with the browser. Like basically that the browser, in my case Edge, actually fills it automatically. And yeah, if it doesn't fill it automatically, it's always like, wait, why? But I found, for example, Blue Sky keeps logging me out on the app on my mobile phone. I don't know why. It's just like, it seems like because I'm using VPNs halfway through, I don't know. But it really is sometimes a weird thing that you have to keep logging in. Like having to keep logging in is always a danger sign to me. It's interesting that Shopify didn't survive Cyber Monday without crashing, and a lot of merchants got locked out. So that was an interesting one as well. My God, that's such an AI-generated image, isn't it? Like, what the?
That font, they use that font everywhere. It's that specific. I'm being a real nerd here, but I'm going to say for any of the font fans, it's a bit like League Gothic, and it seems to appear everywhere. This kind of small, and that to me just says, even if it's really believable, AI immediately.
Yeah. Also, the connection lost thing here. What are these extra stripes on the side of that sign? Like, you know, like, those are the little details that always fascinate me. That break that case. But yeah, it was kind of really bad because a lot of merchants actually rely on it, and I mean that's the whole idea of Shopify. Like, oh, you can subscribe, you can sell things, and yeah, again, much like the Cloudflare breakdown, like a lot of people were relying on one service, and now you're screwed. And yeah, don't keep all your eggs in one basket, I guess. And but yeah, that's a tricky one because it's really easy to start selling on Shopify. But yeah. Now, Dan and me, we looked at something that is just very depressing as well, which is that that's passwords. And I mean, again, admin is the most used password in America, and the others are like password 12345. That's the thing that the already just said. Like websites have this. I don't know what that API is that it then asks you to sign in with Google and pops it up immediately. And I'm like, why would I? Just let me read the thing for now. But there seems to be an API that looks to me very much like a phishing attempt, but it's the official API. So I guess logging into that one might be an easier thing. But yeah, I mean, I always tell people when you can't remember your password, it's not a good password. But at the same time, you keep having to come up with the ones in the first step. My biggest bugbear is the forms that tell you random rules, like, oh, it has to be one character, uppercase, it has to be one number, and it's like chicken is not enough. It needs a capital, so chicken Kiev works, because there's a capital in there. But it's just depressing that year after year, this is what I mean. Most of the services don't even allow you to use them anymore as the password, but it seems like these are old accounts or something. I don't know. Do you do any scraping of that as well to see? Well, you probably wouldn't be because you don't know what people's passwords are. That would be really bad.
Yeah, we don't know what people's passwords are. I mean, we could probably scrape some lists of security vulnerabilities that are public, right? But not passwords. But one thing that kind of came to my mind when I saw this is that, you know, when you do a survey of passwords, this like the simplest ones are always going to be the most popular, right? Because they're even if there were just two people in the whole world who had admin password and everybody else had a strong password, the most popular password would be admin, right? So
Yeah.
this statistic actually doesn't tell us anything about how many people use strong passwords and how secure the internet is. It just tells us that, yes, there's a group of people who have weak passwords, and that's it.
Yeah, that's true. There's not much to finding in there, actually. The other thing, of course, in this case, what cracks me up is that that the repeatability of it has become such a joke in itself to a degree. You know, like the people are like, oh, I use 654 321. That's much better than 123 456. But yeah, it is always fascinating how many of accounts actually had that. So the count number might be something that can tell you that. But I mean, as we said in Microsoft and other companies when I worked in security, people don't hack into your website. People log in because they found ways to make you log in for them, or they actually your passwords are so terrible that it's not a good idea. But then again, you can't trust anything anymore. This was another fascinating one. I think, Dan, that's going down right your alley to a degree.
Yeah.
That's Suno creates an entire Spotify catalog's worth of music every 2 weeks. And they have done an investor pitch to basically sell Suno to other people. And I find that just creative bankruptcy to a degree, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's really difficult as well because, you know, I mean, I've brought up a few times, I have a friend who works in publishing, and this is a huge issue for them, because what they're actually seeing is some of these publishing companies are actually selling music that they're creating for, let's say, video games or films. They're selling it to the AI companies to train their models. And then these AI companies like Suno are using the actual layers from those original songs in the AI music. And the problem has been that sometimes the layers that are on these songs, the little samples, have even got the kind of watermark on them, you know, where it might say the producer's name and things like this. So the problem there is that we know there's copyright being broken, and, you know, copyright infringed left, right, and center. But it's this kind of momentum, isn't it, of AI as an industry that's just meaning people are saying, we'll worry about that later. We'll worry about the legal part in a few years. And you are seeing investment come to Suno, and they are being very successful at the moment. But there's also, I think there's something, you know, rumbling with a few lawsuits and kind of legal battles that's probably going to change the face of this and hopefully stop it being like the Wild West. Because yeah, I agree, it's creative bankruptcy, really. I hate to put AI music down, but it's impressive for the first 5 minutes, if I'm honest.
Well, the same with like content. I mean, more articles are now created by AI than humans. And I mean, that's not surprising because it's so much easier and so much faster to do. And every bloody system tells you, like, create with AI rather than writing this email, because you want to start with, like, I hope this email finds you well. I hope this email finds you in hell, if you actually start an email with that sentence. But that's another story. So the amount of data on the web that's basically bots reading bots is just we're at the tipping point, I think. And it's just like, because it's so cheap, it's so easy to do. It's not cheap in terms of electricity, it's not cheap in terms of what it actually does to the world, but it's very cheap to create these kind of things. And at the same time, I love it when even Google cannot manage it, because Gemini 3 Pro now came out, and the free access actually had to be cut down because of high demand. That was the same with ChatGPT when it came out, because under the hood, it's all very expensive, right? So that was another interesting one, that the Gemini 3, I haven't tried it yet. There's also the new Runway came out today. Mistral released 3 new models yesterday. It's impossible to catch up with that kind of stuff. But seeing that that you do a Google search or a Bing search for Nano Banana and you never get the Nano Banana site, you get lots of like third-party sites that sell you the services or have an interface to the service. And that's another thing that cracks me up, that even Google can't manage to protect their brand, even it's such a silly name.
Yeah, there are even ads, right, on Google for like rappers of Nano Banana.
Yeah. And I don't get it. Like, what? I guess they paid enough to Google, or it really feels like a sends it down a rabbit hole that you're not supposed to be in. And instead of just selling their own Gemini 3 accounts, it's really odd. The last thing that we have in the main section, and I think that's very important, Alex Russell does that every year, where he does the performance inequality gap, where he actually goes like, okay, how is connectivity worldwide, what people can actually access on their mobile devices, and how big are the general websites available out there? And it's not getting smaller at all. Like, it's actually, if anything, we ship loads of JavaScript that nobody needs, and slow down our websites that way. And yeah, it's really, really interesting to see the whole in detail, as Alex Russell is. It's just really impressive how bad it actually is in the mobile desktop networks. But then again, other people, I think we have that later. Wikipedia just made their desktop and their mobile site the same, instead of just trying to detect and doing these kind of things. And that way made it much more performant for everybody else out there. So it might be that the whole idea of like, there's a mobile web and there's a desktop web is kind of over. But yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, it's fascinating to see how much we can gain with that one as well. Now, that's another one that might be up Dan's age as well. I love that there's 1 million screenshots, where you basically have like screenshots of all websites there, and you can click on them and sort them by color, sort them by these kind of things. It's actually really, really cute, because they also give you the data set as well and an API to work with that and get the different data sets that you want to play with. So it's not just like, so this is what it looks like. This is 1 million websites, and you can then zoom into them bit by bit, and it's really, really fun.
We should
Oh, that's cool.
definitely try and speak to the creator of this, because I think the first thought that I had was, it's impressive, to have this kind of infinite scroll feeling. I mean, a million, I know that I mean, how do you make that performant? They've managed to make it usable in the first place, because I mean, that I'm sure was a nightmare to build along the way. But I'd love to know a little bit about how they did it and actually made it kind of have that effect of this infinite, sea of sites whilst being usable.
Wait, I'm in there?
Oh, no way. No.
Yeah, I'm in there on one of the most important top homepages. Look at that. That was not staged. I just honestly didn't know. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's been around since 2006, so that might help. But yeah, wow, I did not know that. But yeah, that endless, infinite zoom thing, I think it comes back to where you consume the web. I think on a telly or on a touch device, this is a really cool thing. On a desktop, not so much. But it's interesting that that the map platforms that we have out there, or the canvas platforms, Leaflet.js and these kind of things, allow you to build these things rather easily. So that was really nice. That was another interesting one. Sorry,
and now the question, was it vibe coded,
No, I'm quite sure it was not. It performed and it didn't crash and there was no errors, and it didn't have like a token in the URL that you can reuse or something. So yeah. That was an impossible prompt. That's like, create an image that displays 2 7-pointed stars, 2 8-pointed stars, and 2 9-pointed stars. All stars are connected to each other except for the ones with the same number of strands. The lines connecting the strands must not intersect. And none of the models actually managed to do it. But humans can easily do this. And it's interesting that this is basically a thing. It sounds like something that you got in a job interview at Google 5 years ago, like that kind of prompt. But it's interesting that like as soon as it becomes more, I don't know, is it a matter of geometry that computers don't know, or I don't know why that's so much easier for humans.
Honestly, I don't know how the multi-model models work, but I would assume that they are not able to understand the geometry and the intersections and what that actually means. So they can, they understand that this is a star and it has 7 spikes and this is a line and maybe that there's a cross and everything, but they don't understand the logic behind it, I assume, yet.
It's interesting how some of them make it like very basic and the other ones make it super pretty and still fail to do it. Like Nano Banana Pro is the most important one. But yeah, it's interesting that there's things where people are. I talked with Dan the other day. There's this old TV show in England that's still running. It's called Countdown, and they have this thing where you can select numbers, and then you have to get a number and multiply, add, or multiply and add the other numbers to come to that number. And I find it very easy for me to actually think like that oftentimes. But then writing an algorithm that would actually solve that problem is much harder than you think. It's a very human way of multiplying and adding that machines are not that good at, and that gives me hope for the future. But at the same time, it's very bizarre that an old show like that comes up with an algorithm that is really tough to do, but might be some old code breakers. Yeah,
right. Like if the ultimate solution is the combination of AI and humans, because humans will always be better at some things and AI will always be better at some things, but they will never be ultimately better than the other part, right? Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it's almost like the creativity involved as well, isn't it? It's this, you think it's just maths, but it's someone who's sort of thinking laterally, or they, like Chris, I think you sometimes, I'm sure, can look at those numbers and just get the answer almost immediately. Sometimes it's like instinctive, and then somebody else will be sat there and they could look at it for an hour and struggle. So it's this little creativity that's really hard to kind of predict, isn't it, in an LLM? And I just don't know if they'll ever be good at it.
Which gives us hope for the future, I guess. Yeah, that's good. I love this. I mean, as somebody who's into old computers, there's now an IDE that actually runs in the browser that you can actually write code for old computers that get automatically executed in an emulator. So this is basically Visual Studio Code with old 8-bit computers and 16-bit computers built in. So this is a Commodore 64 emulator that runs this print Hello Basic world print thing here. So this is the emulated computer, and this is the IDE, and you can actually find all the different languages. So you can do BASIC, you can do assembly, you can do C, and you can actually have like sprite collision, sprite game, like learn about how these old games were built. And it's all now running in the browser using WASM to actually execute the computer in your browser. And it's pretty bonkers that this is possible. But I get that it's exciting for me, but most people will be like, what the hell? But I posted it on LinkedIn, and so many people are like, oh my God, I wanted to do some Apple II coding again. And you're like, why? But okay. So,
I love.
yeah.
Yeah. This is one gripe I have with AI coding is that it removes the part I loved, which is like building the algorithms and playing with it and running it and kind of like getting into the flow, right? So yes, with AI, with the agents, you can build faster, you can sort of create faster. That's a great benefit if you can steer it the right way. But it just takes away this old school, building of those logical problems, which I miss.
Yeah, when the machine basically the fitting with the algorithm is a very important part to actually find out the right way to do something, and especially making it perform. Of course, you can write an agent to do it for you as well and compare the results and stuff, but it takes away the joy of like, oh my God, I sound like such a sad geek. But like, yeah, it's like that's what gets us excited. Another
Yeah.
thing that I found was this retro terminal, and I love that because it basically shows you like your terminal in an old like screen, like it would look like. And I'm gonna sit in a few cafes in Berlin and start coding like that. So I'm just gonna use VI in this thing and actually just mess with people, because you have all kind of settings in there. You can actually have the amber, you can have a monochrome green, you can have scan lines as well. So it actually starts doing the scanning as well, like an old monitor did. You have a pixelated bit, like that's the kind of computers I used to use. You got Apple II, which is even doing the ghosting right as well, like when the machine is actually slowing down. And you got the IBM DOS bonds and the IBM 3728 ones. And the vintage one is my favorite because that's almost impossible to use because that's like really, really bad. And it's also a terminal emulator that uses like 80% of your GPU. So it's not the idea of a terminal, but at the same time, I love that this exists, and you can make it full screen and make your $4,000 MacBook look like a really shitty old computer. And it is a proper terminal emulator. You can actually have different settings. You can actually get ZSH or the normal terminal. You can use all the terminal emulation that you need in your normal one as well. Just make sure that you're actually have classes, or you will need classes in the future. This was an interesting one as well. Slop Evader is an extension that actually shows you the internet before ChatGPT came out. So basically, it gives you all the content of the web from up until November 22, November 30th, 2022, to basically give you search results rather than just random ads and these kind of things. I mean, you can surf to go to archive.org and just use the Wayback Machine as well, but this is a browser extension that does that. And I find it really, really painful that this is actually the case right now, that the web died on that date, it seems. Like we had this cutoff point where LLMs stopped training, and now, of course, they get their search results and added in with RAGs and these kind of things as well. But this is where the AI took over, and we're basically being fed things rather than finding things. I think that's my main frustration with the web these days. You're not researching on it anymore. You're avoiding being told half truths that don't fulfill you.
Yeah,
I don't
this
know.
is interesting. Like, maybe I would be interested in hearing your take on this, guys, because I feel like, Google also changed the internet, right? And I assume when Google arrived, I was a kid, so I don't know all the trivia around it, but it was a paradigm shift again, right? Because people were used to going to specific websites, and suddenly Google started telling them where to go. And then, 20 years later, Google sort of, because who goes to page 3? Somebody might go to page 2 of Google results, right? But who goes to page 3 or page 1,000? So essentially, the thing that's happening now with AI has already been happening with Google. We were already being fed something based on an algorithm, is just, I guess, even more prevalent now, or maybe it's just more visible, or maybe we haven't gotten used to the different interface. But isn't it? And I'm just asking, like, devil's advocate. I'm not saying that this is my opinion, but isn't it the same as it was before?
Which is ironic because you're a lawyer. But like, yeah, no, it is the same to a degree. It's different because, I mean, we had always the problem of SEO spam and basically ads being displayed. But even Google, and I was talking about that earlier, I'm going to write about this, that like ad blocking made the web more weaponized in terms of like ad display and like in your face kind of things. I worked for Yahoo back then when Google came out, and we worked on the front page, and we basically worked on the search engine as well. And Google basically blew us all out of the water because, holy crap, it was so useful. It was just a search box instead of like the 10,000 ads that we showed around you and the distractions that we gave you. And then it really quickly became this like, let's SEO was the first thing to kill the quality. And then Google just basically blatantly showing you ads first was the main thing. Like the content of the Google search result page was like 100% web search results. Then it was 10% advertising, and now it's like 5% web search results if you're lucky on page 4. And I think that's the main difference. So, but one big difference is still you had like 10 things to choose from, and now you get like one AI summary that is like 40% right. And if you're not an interested person, or you're not a paranoid person, then you basically believe that thing immediately. And this is where it becomes dangerous. This becomes a search in Facebook used to be what the search on the web is right now. You get opinionated answers back rather than like things to choose from and make up your own mind. So I think that's where the danger is.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, people will learn over time, and they will see, like, they see through blatantly SEO tuned articles and, SEO spam and things like that. But it will take some time before they do. And until then, it's going to be Wild West.
Is there any chance, though, that over time it actually becomes, I mean, again, Chris, you know much more about this having been a browser maker, but is there any chance that this ever becomes like a feature in the browser where you can switch off AI? I mean, again, I suppose I'm answering my own question that maybe if they're related to ads, then they wouldn't want to turn them off. But is there ever a prospect for that you'd have people having the choice to say, I'd like to use the web, but I want no AI. So I don't want AI summaries. I don't want to link to AI generated content. I don't know how that would be done, but I just feel like maybe there's scope for that, because this tipping point that we're talking about, people's opinions might change, and we might go full circle saying we love AI, but we only want it sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, oh God, why is it everything something gets delivered when I have to show?
They have a brilliant knack for this, I will say, Ondra. If this is your first time watching the show, these delivery people will wait until Chris presses record and go live, and then they'll decide to drop something off. But sorry, yeah, I was just saying, what do you think, Ondra? Do you think there's ever a possibility? Would you want to sort of have this no AI mode and use it, or not?
I mean, I think over time, it's like imagining a no Google mode, right? Or no search engine mode. But I think it's important for it to be there. I don't think it's going to be the mainstream thing or the popular thing. But I hate monopolies. I hate, like when big tech can sort of conquer everything. I mean, they're also bringing amazing products to the table, right? So it's like, but it has to sort of be this push and pull relationship. It cannot be just, somebody just wins everything and everybody else sort of loses. So I think I'm hoping, or I don't think I'm hoping, that somebody will be creating those experiences, and those experiences will be available, and that there will be enough people using them so that those people creating them can make a living out of it. Maybe it's like, I don't know, Firefox has been independent for a long time. I'm hoping that there will be some Firefox sort of AI. It won't be just the Chrome, and everything subjected to ads and personal data and things like that.
Well, Mozilla just announced that they're actually going into the AI space full force right now, and I was thinking about talking to Mark Sermon about it. I think to answer Dan's thing, I think choice will be the thing. I started thinking about getting Kagi as my main search engine, which is like a non-AI search engine that still has proper bots out there indexing the web, and it paid for. But that's the thing. Like, I mean, again, to the article that I want to write soon, it just annoys the hell out of me how everybody used ad blockers and says like, oh, the internet is free, and no, it's not. Like, content creation costs money. You pay for speakers, you pay for writers. You want to actually get something out of it when you put things online. Like, you want to not only like, I mean, when people say like, you can publish with us and it gives you reach, and if you cannot show any ads on reach, what does reach give you? Nothing. So I think the problem here is that companies, as we made the web so hard to actually monetize, people push us into those results, into those like AI overviews, and then download the app and stay in the app and these kind of things. Like, it always cracks me up when you're in Facebook app on a mobile phone and says like, open an external browser, and you're like, no, open in browser would be the right thing. Like, like, I have a browser on my phone. It's not an external browser. You should not have a bloody browser in the Facebook app, because then I don't need to type in my password again, because it's already saved in the other browser, and these kind of things. Like, the convenience of having a browser is actually taken away from us by using these apps. But yeah, it's tricky to actually see that. That's the Wikipedia article where they actually explain how they get 20% faster mobile response times by just doing that thing. So more, a lot of detail, really, really interesting to see. Also goes in well with Alex's article that talks about that. Another interesting bit that I found was that if you actually set your computer to Albania, which I can with a VPN, you can watch YouTube without ads, because they don't have an ad provider in Albania yet. So basically, that's one way to get around that, rather than having an ad blocker. But it's interesting that this still exists. I did not know that, but I tried it out, and it really, really works. You set it to Albania, and then of course you get other results as well. That's might be the confusion point. But it's interesting that there are still these like dark spots on
Yeah,
the normal web.
that's
Like,
crazy. That's like something I
also,
would have assumed would be patched like 2 days later, you know?
yeah. Also, a bit like, I guess the market is not big enough for them to care. So compared to the
Yeah.
American market or
Mm.
something like that, that might be the thing here. And then when you said like, how can a search engine not show AI generated stuff? Like, how would it know?
Yeah,
Like, I mean, that's where watermarking comes
true.
in, and where providers now start thinking. There was a TV show I saw yesterday, a German documentary about like child on the web with AI, like generated illegal materials and these kind of things. And there's the Internet Watch Foundation in the UK that I worked with before when I worked at different companies. And it will be interesting to get them in as well. And there's a company in Frankfurt area that actually works on a model checker that actually, while you're generating the content, already filters out illegal content, because once it's actually uploaded, it's impossible to take down. And like that models should actually force people not to create violent or sexualized or these kind of content. But of course, that there's a huge market in plugins on top of the models that work around these issues. So this was a very fascinating thing to see. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting that these things still exist. But let's talk about you for a change. So what does Apify do, and why is it interesting for our listeners and viewers?
Of course, we want to be on the right side of AI, right? So Apify is most importantly a marketplace for developers where they can monetize their software. We started as a web scraping company, and we still mostly do web scraping, but we also have AI agents, MCP servers, and all other things on our store. We have over 10,000 actors now. We call the tool actors. And any developer from all around the world can come in, they can publish their own actor and monetize it. So it's sort of an app store for automation and digital tools. And now, of course, tools for AI, because AI is pretty data hungry. And if you want AI not to generate slop, but actually to do something useful, you have to give it eyes and ears and hands, right? And this comes with being able to do something on the internet, but also to collect data from the internet and then to be able to act on it. Because of course, I don't know, if you want to do a marketing agent, let's say, that doesn't generate nonsense but is actually good, you need to have information about your competitors. You need to have information about maybe some influencers that you're working with. You need to have a lot of data, and Apify and the actors that we have in our store can help you get that.
Okay, I was wondering about this because there's actors and agents, and the only agent and actor that I know was like old English actors that also worked in the counterinsurgency, these kind of things. But like, yeah, the actor is not a different kind of agent, but it's actually acting on your behalf, or what's the difference between an actor and an agent?
Yeah, I think the name actor is maybe 7 years old now. I think they have decided on the name just before I joined the company. And it's exactly like you said, it was based on that it acts on your behalf. We were even playing with some ideas of like actors are like human actors. They have a script, like a script of code. And based on that script, they do something for you. They perform something. I think originally they weren't even called actors, but just acts. And then we kind of expanded it because actors made a lot more sense as a brand and so on. And why they were named agents, I guess because 7 years ago, agents weren't a thing. And now we're actually quite happy that we have gone with something else because it's different. It positions us. We're not it's not like yet another 1,000th company with agents. We have actors, we're quite happy with them.
Mm-hmm. Now you have different tools here. You have like the scraping tools, and you said like you started as a scraping company, but that still seems to be a big part of what you do. But you're focusing more on allowing people to monetize their apps instead right now. What was the market for scraping? Because I mean, I always write like the same 10 lines of PHP to download websites. Was it just a matter of that people were just trying to do it differently?
I think we joined the market at a very good moment, and that was when headless browsers became a thing. And of course, all kinds of blocking and infrastructure changes were starting happening on websites, especially the popular ones. So where maybe 10 years ago or 15 years ago, you could scrape pretty much anything with just an HTTP request. Nowadays, it's very different. The websites are employing all kinds of anti-bot technologies. And it's an interesting cat and mouse game because, of course, it's legal to scrape public data, but it's also legal to block you from scraping that data. So there's always going to be this fight between the websites and the scrapers trying to access it. And this creates space for companies like ours and developers around the world to sort of solve that problem and then make it runnable at scale, right? Because there's a huge difference between building a scraper and building a super optimized scraper where you can compete with the cost per result on the market and actually sell it to someone. And this is also where scraping differs very much between scraping for individual or hobby projects, where you need to get like 10 results, 100 results, and so on, and scraping where you need to get millions or tens of millions of results for some project. Now with AI, of course, a lot of scraping is done to train models. Interesting businesses that we were encountering were not working with OpenAI or Google. They have their own scraping operations. But there are people who want to build, let's say, a Korean specific model or Arabic specific models. And of course, they don't have the firepower of OpenAI to do this. So some of them turn to us and like, hey, we want to build a specific model because it will work better for our audiences. Can you help us get the data?
Mm-hmm. I mean, one of the things that I was confused about was the name, like Apify. I mean, when Web 2.0 came out and open APIs came out and data was built, products were built with APIs rather than just like built by hand. I wrote a book about it back then because I loved that to bits. I'm like, okay, I get photos from Flickr, I get this from Google Maps, I get that from Yahoo Search, and I can put it all together and mash up and make one website that is always maintained by using the social web. I upload a new photo to Flickr, my website will automatically be updated. And then sooner or later, all these APIs died. Like all of them, all the free APIs got taken down. or you had to go like writing a YouTube player. Back then I wrote a YouTube player for blind people and for people with like mobility issues. And the API of YouTube was amazing. The API of YouTube nowadays is like, here's get 3 results and then go away for an hour, because people were scraping YouTube to death and actually making interfaces that looked like YouTube and these kind of things. But building an API on top of scraped data sounds to me like a very, very dangerous thing. Like, because the data can always go away or the data changes, and like, what kind of caching mechanisms did you have in place, or do people have to write them themselves?
Yeah, so that's the beauty of actors, right? That a lot of the logic is encapsulated in them. So as a customer, as a user, you just come and you take the actor off the shelf, you just sign up and you start using it with our free plan. So you don't have to build anything for a lot of the websites. And then, of course, if you're building it yourself, I see that on the screen you have Crawley, which is our open source library. And it helps with a lot of the fingerprinting and blocking and generally just managing the browsers and the HTTP connections, because for scraping, it matters that you're looking like a specific browser and so on. But I would say that, the APIs, they weren't turned off because people were scraping them. I'd say they were turned off because the companies wanted to monetize them more. And of course, I remember early days of Facebook, I could have like Facebook and Messenger and all kinds of things in one Messenger app, right? Because they had open APIs and you could sort of have that. But then the companies, they want to monetize my attention. They want to have complete control of my behavior, right? They want to know what I'm doing exactly. Not only for like, monetizing my attention, also to improve their product and so on. Because if it's just API, it's hard to improve and so on. So web scraping is sort of just a replacement for this. And it's absolutely true that those things break. Maintenance will always be part of web scraping. But, we had a Cloudflare outage. We had multiple AWS outages. And honestly, the well-written scrapers, they don't really break that often. Because, of course, we're typically not working with the generated HTML that is rendered on the website if we don't have to, right? We go directly to the APIs that the websites are using. The public APIs, of course, that the websites are using to fetch this data. It saves us the rendering, saves us a lot of back and forth. Also, it's nicer to the website because if you just fetch the JSON without fetching all the images and touching all the CDNs and so on, it saves a lot of requests. So there are ways how to make scrapers stable. They will never be 100% stable. That's where also we're able to make business, because if web scraping was easy, everybody would do it themselves and nobody would need a company to do it for them. So I guess the difficulty of it creates space for us to exist, and also for all the developers that publish on our platform, right? Because I think we're paying over $500,000 every month to them now, and it's grown like 5 times over the last year. So of course, we have not been a marketplace forever. We started building a web scraper. Then we turned that web scraper into a platform where we can build more web scrapers. Then we started publishing our web scrapers. But it was always with the idea, because that was always our founder's dream and plan, to create this marketplace for developers to sell software. And the web scraping was kind of the niche that we used to get in and to be able to do it. But the marketplace was always there from the beginning, because Jan, he's always very passionate about open source not being fair to developers, and generally like monetization options weren't great for developers. And he wanted to change that. And this was his idea of changing it. And that's kind of why the Apify $1 million challenge is also on the screen right now, is because we want to give back to the community even more, right? So they help us grow, we help them grow, everybody succeeds. It's like a win-win situation where the developers can come in, they can tap into our huge domain rating, our SEO, our marketplace, the fact that we have access to all those customers. And in turn, we get their code and it gets published on the platform and we both win together. And with the $1 million challenge, we're sort of putting our money behind that promise. And we want people to just come in and build whatever they think the market might need and whatever they think is useful. And we're going to pay them for it, even if nobody actually uses it. If it's something interesting, we have weekly challenges. So we've already, I think, we've announced 2 winners by now. So there's like $2,000 weekly challenge. There's this final challenge. It's $30,000, I believe, for the first place. So quite a lot of money. And this is all with the idea that if we can show the world what developers are capable of building and make it discoverable, then people will find it and they will use it, because why would they build all those tiny tools for integrating this and that and getting this data and connecting this API to that API and this very specific agent for a very specific use case? No, SaaS will ever come out of it. No big VC fund will ever fund it. But there could be tons of people making $100, $1,000. There are developers making tens of thousands of dollars a month on our platform. So it's like any creator economy, right? And it's fun. I remember messages on LinkedIn like, hey, I built this, I put it on Apify, I forgot about it. 3 months later, there's money in my account. And I'm like, what? And then it keeps growing, and suddenly, it makes money for the people. And it's, for many of them, it doesn't become their job, but it's nice. It's recognition for the effort they put into building that software.
I mean, that's the thing. Like the monetization bit is one. We discussed it this morning as well. I mean, there was an interesting article about the web payment API and how far down the line that one is. And like everybody just like, oh, you got to be in the marketplaces. You got to be in the Apple Store. You got to be in the Play Store in Google to make money on the web. It's really hard to make money with your application because nobody wants to pay for it. I find it really bizarre because you have to pay Apple to play. You have to pay other marketplaces as well to be part of it. So it's like, okay, that's already money that needs to come in from that. But I've seen other systems like Flatter and these kind of things, or what's the one with the buy me a coffee kind of thing. None of them seem to have taken on. It seems like people are the success of the App Store of Apple is basically that it's tied into Apple Pay. And that disconnect seems to be the problem of making money with just software on the web. So the 1 million is accumulative. So basically you say like we have 1 million and we pay that out. And then once that's done, the challenge is over. So it's not a $1 million main prize.
Yeah, right? It's there are a few prizes. And then because we wanted, if we did a $1 million main prize, it would be like one team getting really rich and everybody would sort of be like, yeah, we tried, but Apify is much more about publishing and getting those tools out there, and then of course getting a chance, because the challenge is that just the beginning, right? The tools or the actors, they will stay monetized, and they will, if they're good and if they find users, and we will of course try our best to bring them, it will keep making money in the long run. So it's not just this, it's also the long-term profitability and revenue generation stream of having this app that we call an actor on the store. And that's why we also created this accumulative or sort of distributed price for the number of users. So most of the budget actually goes not in prizes, but in a fee for a new user, sort of. So if you can build an actor that brings people, and even if the people don't pay us any money, we will pay you up to $2,000 per actor just for the free user that you have sort of attracted. And then, I mean, if you're able to attract users, it's quite likely that some of them will become paying and that you will make money in the long run.
How do you build an actor? What's the language? What's the model there? Is it a drag and drop interface? Is it a JSON object? How do you do that?
The best way is to use either JavaScript or Python, because we have the best tooling for it. You could build a Java actor or a Rust actor. Everything is essentially a Docker container on Apify. So you could build anything you want, but JavaScript and Python are the preferred languages because it's the easiest to get started with. We have crawly in both languages, so if you want to scrape something, you immediately have access to that. But we also support Scrapey and all the other frameworks, and agent. We have integrations with LangChain and CrewAI and all kinds of agentic frameworks as well. So it's really, the idea is to be an open platform that makes it really easy for developers to start on, but then to give them all the freedom they need.
I mean, Crawley and others are based on Playwright, which is came originally from Google. Then the team went to Microsoft and did it there. Do you also feed back to these systems? Like, do you actually commit to the original source code, or is it something that you haven't gotten time to do yet?
Not anymore, I would say. Back in the day when I was actually building Crawley, it was called Apify SDK back then. Then we had to sort of split it up because it wasn't a very thoughtful choice of a name. And nobody was using it, for some reason. And so back then, I was actually contributing quite a lot, more like issues, and then help how to debug them and so on to the Puppeteer repo. So like the original ones where this whole idea was sort of born. But then when the team from Puppeteer were sort of poached and went to Microsoft and created Playwright, I'd say it became way more. Puppeteer was sort of still kind of like an underground thing, it seemed to me. We were using it, and it had a lot of traction, but not like huge traction. Whereas when Microsoft built Playwright, they turned it into like a proper product. And I would say at that point, there was no space for any sort of external contributions anymore because they had their roadmaps, they had their ideas, what they want to build. And honestly, web scraping was not the market for them. They were all about testing, for using the Playwright in enterprises and in big code bases to do front end testing, end to end. So, but still, Playwright works very well for us. We use it. It's a great tool. So we're no longer part of its journey, but we love it anyway.
Do you see people using the different browser options in Playwright, or is everybody going for Chrome? Because the main difference between Puppeteer and Playwright was that Playwright could simulate Safari, Firefox, all the others as well, whereas like Puppeteer was Chrome only.
We use Firefox a lot. Like it's because let's say the fingerprints of the browsers are different, and some things are easier to work with in Firefox, some things are easier to work with in Chrome. We're not using Safari that much. It's just difficult to work with. They don't support a lot of the APIs that you would need to work with in terms of scraping or automation. But yeah, I would say Firefox and Chrome are equal, or maybe even we use Firefox a little more.
Interesting. I didn't think that. I mean, we were always looking at that, like when I worked for Firefox back then, and I was like, okay, so where are the numbers coming from? And you're always like, oh, there's lots and lots of users there, and then we realized it was people automating, and it was actually a bot that actually looked like lots and lots of users, and we're like, damn it! So for Mozilla, it was not that successful. But I love the idea that you're actually throwing it out to people to have like that your idea can become an actor, and even if it doesn't make money immediately. Like, what have you seen? Like, what are things that you haven't seen yet that you would be interested in? Are there kind of vertical markets that you would love people to play with Apify?
Yeah, so we thought about this when we were setting up the challenge, and we realized that we already have a lot of social media scrapers and a lot of lead gen scrapers and a lot of e-commerce scrapers. So we limited the use cases, not in a sort of whitelist way, but more of like a blacklist way. So we said, okay, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, those are off the table. Try to find some other things that are interesting. And frankly, we're still getting surprised by what people are coming up with. I don't know where it's interesting how we're in the business, but we just don't have such broad ideas. Maybe it's because the people come from different parts of the world, different cultures, they're exposed to different tooling or whatever, but they just come with all kinds of crazy use cases, and they're also able to build those use cases, which is even better, right? So I'm looking forward to actually reviewing all the submissions at the end of the challenge to kind of inspire myself, because and like it's still a business, Apify, right? So we're doing this for the developers, but then at the same time, it's our responsibility to bring the users to them, right? So the fact that somebody comes with a use case doesn't mean that it's immediately going to be successful. We have to find the buyers for it, in a sense. We have to sort of figure out how to market this. So we're going to dive deeper into what are the options what we can do. And it's also very beneficial for us because we can diversify our offering, right? So we're talking about this quite often. Web scraping is specific segment. It has its pros and cons. What are the other things like AI agents, MCP servers, API wrappers, data processing jobs, and things like that that could be hosted on Apify, code sandboxes nowadays, that we can not only have developers around the world build successfully, but that we can also bring to market.
Cool. Well, I mean, we have our Congress coming up in America and in Berlin again next year as well. Are you going to be part of that? I would love to see a workshop on Apify there.
I mean, I'm not aware, but I would love to. So let's chat more.
So yeah, I mean that's 15,000 people coming in 3 days. So that's always a fun thing to hang out in. And like I think the one last thing, like how do you see in terms of like where are so far people coming from that actually take part in that challenge? Do you have that information already? Because I see a lot of like online coding challenges and stuff being flooded by certain markets rather than like people worldwide that you want to reach. Do you see that there is a certain group of people that it attracts?
Yes, but it has been like that for quite a long time. And we sort of think of it as not as a problem, but as a genuine like boon, you know. And the thing is, when you're in typical DevRel and you're doing hackathons, you're doing them to get more business, right? In most cases. So you want to work with developers in companies that will then adopt your product. But for us, because we're a marketplace, it's a little bit different. We have the buyers, and we do hackathons for them as well, and like events. But the store and this $1 million challenge is more for the creator side. It's for the people who can build something that we can then sell to the buyers. And so we're absolutely fine with those people coming from the global south, for example. And we have tons of great developers from India, Africa, that are our ambassadors, and they're doing such great things with our brand and just like talking to their communities where they're from. And we're happy to be the company that sort of bridges the gap between the developer talent out there and the companies that can actually buy and pay for those tools and software, right? So it's a bit different for us, and I really like this sort of. We sometimes say that we're sort of sending U.S. money to the global south, but we're kind of proud of that. You know, I think because it works, and the customers are happy, the developers are happy. So maybe we found something interesting there. You know.
Cool. Okay, I guess we are at the end of the hour. So basically, this was Ondra Urban from Apify, but stay and yeah, just basically let's see what's the final say of you to our community, to our live people watching, the 5 of them watching. What are messages that you have out there for people? Like turning from engineer to COO after being a lawyer is not the normal way for everybody. But are you looking back? Are you missing being engineer?
I do. I think it's sort of a nostalgia for me as well, because now when I open VS Code, I actually canceled my WebStorm subscription like a few months ago because I wasn't using it. And so whenever I try to get back, I realize it's different than how it was back then. And I always had this idea of getting back to coding when like we sell Apify or something, and we have an IPO or there's this big exit, you know, and I don't have to worry about this because I do love my job. It's great. But I have this engineering nostalgia. And now I fear that with AI, the sort of engineering I loved will not be there anymore, or at least not in a professional setting, right? And so I will be able to play with those emulators for fun, but like the engineering job will be different. But like to share something with the people, I'd say, you know, to be curious, you know, it's no matter how the landscape is gonna change and whatever happens, I think there's always something interesting to learn and something cool to build. And maybe the tools are gonna be different, but it's still gonna be fun, you know, and it's just like we have to be open to it.
And I think the freedom to create, to build something with code is something that nobody can take away from you. And I think it's a very different kind of creativity than writing or making music or anything else. But it is the same kind of creativity. As you said, you can do it as a hobby if you want to, because we like doing it. But it's something that you should not give up that easily, to say like, okay, let's have computers do stuff for us rather than just doing it ourselves. Dan, any last words from you today?
Yeah, just to say thanks for your time, Ondra, because I know before this, myself and Chris, we were saying, you know, that in some ways, some of these tech topics like blockchain and scraping, there's maybe hype or controversy around them in the early days when people start talking about them. And now we're in a kind of age where companies like yourself with scraping and Algorand Foundation with blockchain are kind of showing people what it actually is and how it's useful, you know, in the modern age. So yeah, I've definitely learned a lot, and I appreciate you giving us your time today.
Cool.
Yeah, thank you for having me, guys, and I hope somebody will join the challenge. You know,
Probably 1 million is not a bad idea. Even if it's accumulative, like so. So create lots of agents on in Cursor that actually takes part of the challenge. Do it yourself. That might be a better way of doing it rather than just playing the challenge. Scrape the challenge page. No, wait, that's another thing that might not work, but we'll see. Cool. Other than that, one last piece of advice: if you make snow angels out there, don't do them in the dog park. Never a good idea. But that was it from today. Thank you very much.